Kelly, middle school language arts teacher and author of the Lucia Chronicles. Today's vlog is about teaching vocabulary in your middle school classroom, and not just your language arts classroom. So I have a couple technology related ways that I teach vocabulary and a couple old school ways that I teach vocabulary. So I'm going to start with the old school ways and then take a minute to describe some of the technology related ways that I learned of this year. So some old school ways to teach vocabulary is I found that my kids, I teach 6th grade, my kids really enjoy cutting and pasting. So I think that's kind of surprising, but I did a vocabulary activity with that and they loved it and said it was very helpful when like in learning the words and the definitions and then for studying. So what I did was I created 2 columns just in a table in a Google Doc, and I mixed up the definitions so the definitions weren't beside their words. So then my students cut out either the word side or the definition side, whatever you think is less complicated for your students, and then they had to glue. Well, first they had to lay out what they thought was the correct word with the correct definition, and they weren't allowed to glue till after we went over it because I've learned the hard way that that just creates disaster. So my students really liked that, I think more or less because it was kinesthetic. It was quick. They had about 15-20 minutes to cut and move things around before we went over the answers, and they glued it down and then they left with their study guide for their vocabulary. Another old school way, not involving technology, is something my colleague introduced me to, and it's called Kick Me. So what you would do is you have, again, I love charts, so open up a Google Doc or Microsoft Word document and insert a table, write down the definitions of the words, and then leave the left-hand column where the words would go next to the definition blank. Take some post-it notes or something else like that, write the vocabulary words on it, stick it to the back of the students, and then they have to walk around seeing the vocabulary words and writing it down in their chart next to what they think the definition is. Make sure that they use pencil, and after the activity's over, you can go over the definitions, and again, they leave with a study guide. That's a great activity because in middle school, kids are even less likely to want to get up and move around. Also forces interactions amongst the students. So some technology ways to teach vocabulary. One of them is called Plickers, which I'm going to insert a screenshot probably right here about Plickers. And Plickers is a website, but it is also an app that you have to download to your phone. And I haven't done it in a while, and I've only done it a couple times, but my students loved it. And essentially what it is through the website you assign a number to each student. I just do it alphabetically because it's easier that way, and that's for you more than anything. So say Sally Adams is first alphabetically, then you print out these like cards that have like a scan thing on it. So Sally Adams has to have the first the number 1 scan card. And so essentially what it has is it has 4 sides, A, B, C, and D. So then on the computer you create, I guess you could call it a quiz or whatever you want to call it. So, you know, definition of cat is, and you come up with A, B, C, and D. You put it on a smart board or on the projector or whatever you have in your classroom. And then the students decide what they think the answer is, and you download the app onto your phone, and you just go around and scan the classroom. And you don't even have to go around scanning each individual document. If the students just hold it up and you can scan out into the audience, sometimes it misses a couple depending on how far away a student is, but it will tell you who's answered and who hasn't, so you can call out on a student if they haven't responded yet to the answer to the question. And then in real time, it shows students what they're answering in a bar, I believe it was a bar graph, on the smart board or however you're presenting the information to your students. And you can see how many of them have it right, how many aren't correct, and it gives you real-time answers. So that is kind of cool, and that is called Plickers. Recently, the other technology version I want to share with you today is I learned about something called Kahoot. And our tech guy, who goes around finding cool technology things basically, and also troubleshooting, he introduced it to our staff, and I have a lot on my plate, so I wasn't very interested, but I had some kids ask me. So it was kind of worked out to my advantage because the kids understood already how it worked, so they helped me set it up. And basically Kahoot, which I will put a screenshot right here, Kahoot is basically a website where there's already Kahoots, it's a game, there's already Kahoots already made, or you can make your own. I just tried it out with a literary elements review for my students, but I could totally see it being used for vocabulary, and I'm pretty sure there's probably already, depending on what you're teaching, vocabulary ones in there. It is not content area specific, so you can use it cross-curricularly. And really what you do is you log in, you decide what Kahoot you're using, and each Kahoot has a unique pin. So the students, we use Chromebooks, so students get out their Chromebooks, they go to Kahoot, they insert a pin, they make up a name. As they make up their names, it displays on, for me, I use a smartboard, it displays on the smartboard. I did it in my enrichment class, which is kind of like a small group class that I have near the end of the day, so I only had 9 students this quarter. So once I had all 9 up there, I said, okay, good, we're locked in, you can't change your name anymore. And we started playing, and how it is on the smartboard, it would say the question, and then it would give them 4 choices, and each choice corresponded to both a color and a shape. So students on their Chromebooks did not see the question. Their screen was divided up into the 4 colors and their corresponding shapes, and then they selected what they thought, and they can see what other people are answering along with them when they look at the smartboard. And as soon as everyone has answered, it moves on and shows them who answered what, who was correct, and whatnot, and then it takes them to a leaderboard and shows how many points each one of them has before you go on to the next question. It's actually very minimal teacher role in using Kahoot besides hitting the next button. But it also gives you a lot of data and informal observation, at least, and to see who's understanding what's going on and who's not. So Kahoot could not just be used for vocabulary, it could also be used for concepts in class, and it's a game and kids love it. So, what technology do you use to teach vocabulary in your classroom, or what old school strategies do you use? Let me know in the comments below, and in the meanwhile, happy reading and happy writing.